right? And for us, if you say that RDU is a mosquito, well, I'll own it. The way that I look at the PAP, say the aircraft carriers, to bring down an aircraft carrier, you'll need smaller frigates who will attack the aircraft carrier from different angles. So whether it's a mosquito or a frigate or whatever you may call it, we have to chip away. But the nearer it got to Tharman, it kept dropping, right? So which is why we got the kind of results that we did. Tharman just pulled everything down.
It's the aura of Tharman.
Yeah. I believe in the state being secular. In the separation of the state and the church. Only in a secular state can all faiths or non-faiths be protected.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Yala, your thrice weekly podcast where we talk about the hottest news with a touch of what, Terrence?
Good old humor.
Good old humor, man.
Yeah.
It's a special episode.
Special episode, yes.
Special episode in the lead up to elections. We've been trying our best to get as many perspectives as possible. And who we have in front of us is from some would say a relatively young party, but I know you feel differently. And it is none other than the Secretary General of Red Dot United, Ravi Philemon.
Hi.
Welcome to Yala.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
How's life these days? How would you describe life these days?
Busy, very busy. Sleeping like 4 or 5 hours every night. I know it's not healthy, but the work's got to be done, and I'm a workaholic. People who know me tell you that I'm a workaholic, and I'm always focused on what needs to be done, and so that keeps me up this season especially.
Yeah. I mean, when we talk about younger opposition parties, people tend to think of them as smaller as well, right? But is there any difference in your day-to-day experience as a party compared to, say, a party of more history?
Right.
Like, is there any difference in the work that you have to do to, be in the race as well?
I think RDU is no longer, size-wise, I'm not speaking about legacy, right? Size-wise, RDU is not a small party in that sense, because they are smaller parties with 10 or less members and so on and so forth, right? But we have 250 people helping us in different areas. It's not everybody's on the ground line, because some people just don't like to be on the ground, right? So I've had people who went for walkabouts with me, and then they have told me, like, Ravi, I don't want to go on walkabouts with you. I feel like I want to ping sun, man, So, because it's difficult for some people to go and meet people and talk to them. They'd rather sit behind the computer, help you do research, help you write policies, help you with comms, with media, and the other things that needs to be done, right? So I think I'm thankful for the volunteers who have come on board RDU, who have believed in our mission and our vision, and I think, in the early days, right, when we first started RDU, a good friend messaged me. He said that, Ravi, it's good for you to close down RDU, and I was like, why? He said that, well, if a party like Sing First cannot make it, what makes you think that you can make it? But there is a difference, right? I think that there was a difference because I have the experience of managing voluntary welfare organizations. And I know that with volunteers, RDU is a volunteer-based organization. With volunteers, you have to let them give as much as they want to give or as little as they want to give, right? And you take what's needed to grow your organization. And I think so that's how we have been running things, and I'm thankful for the people we have with us, and
So just especially for our audience, right, whom some might not even know much about RDU's background, could you walk us through how RDU was founded during a very turbulent period as well in the 2020 GE?
It is sure. Happy to talk. I think RDU is an accidental political party. We never set out to form RDU. What happened was I contested the 2015 GE, and how I contested the 2015 GE was also by accident. In the 2011 GE, a few people asked me if I would contest that election. And my gut instincts is to say no, right? Because I was in a senior management position in a welfare organization, fairly well paid, and I had to resign from my job if I were to contest an election. And at that time, my children were still fairly young. We had just returned back from working in the US and Canada for a few years, and so they could not fit into the local school system, and I had to put them through private school. So I needed a certain income to keep the family going. So the instinct was to immediately tell them no, that I'm ready to help them in whatever ways that needs to be helped in. But I wasn't personally. I didn't want to personally contest an election.
Sorry, them was who was them?
A few people, without mentioning names,
From the opposition.
From the opposition.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first persons who reached out to me was actually Mr. Shanmugam from the Minister of Law and Home Affairs. That was soon after I started writing for the Online Citizen. He asked if I would meet him in his office, and I met him.
So, sorry, that was around what year?
I think 2009, 2010.
And you came back from the US which year?
About there, 2008, 2009.
Okay.
Around that period. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he asked me if I would come and help him, and I asked him, like, so the conversation went something like this, right? And like, why would I want to join the PAP? And then all I've heard is like not good stuff, Then he said that, well, come and help me in my MPS, then you can find out more about the PAP. And I thought that he was sincere in what he had to offer. And so I worked in his MPS for a few months. And I finally decided that this is not for me, because the people who come to his MPS, they're all good people. They come there to do good once a week, 2 hours, writing letters for people, meeting them, doing stuff for them and all that. But I didn't need to do that, you see, because I was in the welfare organization. I did good every day, So I felt that it's the system that needed to change. And of course, some people feel that the system can be changed from inside, right? But I felt that the PAP as a machinery it's huge, it's big. It's very likely that it will change me rather than I change the system. So we had a frank conversation, Mr. Shanmugam and I think, and we both agreed that it was better for me to be not part of what he was doing. So that was the first encounter, right? So after that, I mean, I was more involved with TOC. I helped Jeanette Chong Aruldos in her campaign for Mountbatten.
And that was with SPP?
NSP. She was in NSP at that time. I wasn't a party member then.
Yeah.
Okay, NSP, okay.
Yeah. So because at that point in time, I didn't have any intention of contesting an election, right? All I knew is that we need plurality, and Jeanette came across as a good person that I can support, and so that's what I did. And then when the 2015 GE came, Mr. Cham asked me if I would contest the election. And again, my gut instinct was to say no, and then he asked me a pointed question: "What's your excuse this time?" Because we had that same conversation in 2011, right?
This was Mr. Cham Sitong.
Yeah, Mr. Cham Sitong, yeah. And I knew exactly what he was telling me, right? So I didn't reply to him immediately, but I went back home, thought about it, thought that I was at a different station in 2015 than I was in 2011. In 2011, my children were still young, going to school and all that. In 2015, my daughter had already graduated. She had already been offered a job. My son was going to be enlisted to NS. So I was at a different station in life. And I did my own calculation. I felt that I had this different skills, experience, and training, and people would likely hire me even if I were to resign from this job. But I was very wrong, yeah, because but and so that's how eventually said that okay, like, let's do my national service, like, just contest one time, and but life, like the sea, right, takes you to different destinations.
So that was when you contested. It was with
SPP.
SPP.
Yeah.
And then you were with SPP for a while.
For about a year.
And then you joined PSP after that.
No. So the contesting the 2015 GE, right, opened my eyes. What it opened my eyes to was that before that I was an activist, right? I like to call myself, refer to myself as a blogivist, an activist with a blog. So, and I took great pride in that, right? And but contesting the 2015 GE, I realized that what's important to me may not be important to the people on the ground. Their priorities are very different. It's what's important to them is the money in their pockets or the lack of money in their pockets. So and I began to see things from their perspective, and so basically, the 2015 GE, I ran almost as an independent candidate because I had to raise my own funds. I had to bring my own volunteers on board. And of course, Mr. and Mrs. Cham, they helped. They helped in the sense that they came for my rally, spoke at my rally, and so on and so forth. But most of it was like me taking the SPP logo, putting it there, and running my own show, basically. So after the election, those that helped me, my close friends, so those who came to help me were my family, my friends, and people who believed in what I was doing, right? And they thought that they wanted to do something else besides what's out there in the political scene, right? Because all we saw were politics that was very personality based. Because at that point in time, right, there was Lau Tia Kiang, there was Shamsi Tong, people that I respect a lot. I have high regards of, but we felt that we have to move away from personality-based politics. Of course, personality will always be there, we always have different personalities in politics, right? But what do we want to stand for? I think values were very important to us. So these were the kind of conversations that we were having after contesting the 2015 GE.
And we, meaning the people?
Me and my friends.
Friends,
So we thought that we will form a political party. So that's what we did. After the 2015 GE, I let my membership lapse. My friendship with the Mr. and Mrs. Cham remained, right? Because when they started the foundation, the Cham Sitong Sports Foundation, I was its founding executive director. But I was very clear that I was going to be with them just for the time being to get it off the ground. But I will not stay with them forever and ever and ever. But my membership in SPP, it lapsed. I allowed it to lapse. Right? So, so in this period of consulting to form something new, we spoke to different parties, different personalities. We drafted our own constitution and so on and so forth. And it was during this time that we were in a limbo, deciding to launch a political party or not, that we heard about Dr. Tan Chek Bok wanting to launch his own political party, PSP. And I knew Doc from my time in TOC because we interviewed him. We had a debate with all the four presidential candidates at that time, all the four Tans, I think. So I knew him. So I reached out and to him, and we decided to talk, and we met up in a restaurant. I came with my friends, and he came with some of his people, and we realized that we had a lot of things in common, right? Because he was talking about openness, transparency, independence, so compassion, everything which was what we wanted to build ourselves, right? So we went back, me and my friends, we had this conversation among us, and we thought that, well, you know what? Let's drop what we are doing and let's go and help this man, set up this thing. Our values all seem to align, and so that's what we did, like, yeah.
And that was all the way till 2020.
2020.
And it was 3 weeks before the election that you all got approval to form Red Dot United.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
But what led to that? Given that you had, already kind of stopped plans with your friends, joined PSP, kind of helped them for a period of time, what made you want to leave?
Well, Doc is a great person. Nobody, he's a father figure, right? So he reaches out to you. He's very warm. I really appreciated him and the time. We are still friends, so we still do talk to each other, exchange pleasantries, and I wish him well. But, for me, I think I think that the culture that you have is also very important, and it's the people who make up the culture, right? And and that's where we were finding a little bit of difficulty, because I had helped Jeanette in her campaign, and I contested as a candidate of SPP, but whereas the people who were with Doc, we must never forget that Doc was a PAP MP for 26 years. So his trusted men are all from the PAP, or formerly from the PAP, and you have a certain mindset, right? You have a certain way of doing things. I don't fault them. That is the experience that they had, right? And I think it's important to it was a great time being there, right? Because it was the biggest political party that I've ever been in.
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of push and pull, which I enjoyed very much. When you craft policies, for example, I was the head of I became the head of policy eventually. There were people who were pushing and pulling the different policy positions that you're making. And to me, that was very, very exciting and very interesting, right? But at the end of the day, we felt that it'd be very difficult for us to fit in. And so, that's why we left. Not because, not for any other reason. Some of it is like well publicized in the media, so without going further into that. But my period with PSP was very brief, right? In the scheme of things, I was only with PSP from 2019 to 2020. The reason why this was spoken so much about at that period of time is because I'm prominent enough for the media to pick this kind of things up. And then I think it was blown out of proportion because it wasn't, my parting with PSP was not as acrimonious as the media made it out to be. We just had differences of opinion, and we felt that it's better for us to part. So nothing major or acrimonious as the media made it out to be at that point in time.
So but in terms of like public perception, right? When they see your history of contesting under different party banners and all, some people say that isn't politics about rapprochement and getting people to work together as opposed to, we can't see eye to eye, we go our separate ways and all that. So what do you respond to that criticism?
Well, I think, for me, I'm still in the same ecosystem, right? It's not like I went from the Android system to the Apple operating system, right? I'm still in the Android operating system, And I think just like nobody will fault someone for leaving an organization to go and work for somebody else for different things. For some people, it's because, oh, my salary in this place is not enough. I need $500 more, $200 more, whatever. Other people maybe, hey, I don't like the working culture here. I want to go somewhere else. So I think that should apply to any organization. We are not. I mean, my wife, I'm married to her, right? I made a covenant with her that till death do us part. So I'm never going to leave my wife. I don't think my wife's ever going to leave me.
Yeah.
Right. But the till death do us part doesn't apply to the organizations that we are affiliated with, right? So I think that's an important distinction that we need to make. Yeah.
So the fact that you've been in the political scene for quite a while means that, I mean, it's clear that you're passionate, right? But going back to when you came back to Singapore, you started a blog. You call yourself a blogtivist. You told Shanmugam that the only things you had heard about the PAP were bad things. But correct me if I'm wrong, you're a fourth generation Singaporean,
Yes.
right? Which means you were born in Singapore.
Yes.
Your parents also spent time in Singapore. So what were these bad things that you heard, and what made you even want to go into activism?
Well, I think I have always been involved in the community. I have tried my best to be involved in the lives of people, trying to help, especially in poverty alleviation. In the early days, it was through the church that I was involved in. I'm a very committed follower of Christ. I remember having this conversation with my best friend, when I was like 20-some years old. It's like, Ravi, what's your ambition? I was like, just fresh out of NS, right? And I was like, I think I'll join the PAP, I'll get elected and become an MP, But that was me, like a naive 20-some-year-old man telling this to my best friend, right? Because at that point in time, I remember while I was doing national service, having heated arguments with my friend who was very anti-PAP. Because my lot in life had improved, right? I come from a very poor family. For a period of time, I was homeless. Then my mother was able to use her CPF to buy a one-room, one-hall flat where her 3 children could live together with us. She was a single parent for a period of time. And from there, we moved on. We started to work. Me and my sisters, we started to work. We moved on to a maisonette. We did fairly well for ourselves. Right? So, but going to the US, it opened my eyes.
And when was that? When did you go to the US?
I think it was 2003 and 2000, somewhere around that period. And I've always been believed in activism, believed in doing good on the ground and so on and so forth. But I think I have been. I've always thought that activism has got to be quiet. You try to push boundaries quietly, without being too loud about it. Going to the US, it opened my eyes, and I realized that there is a place for loud activism as well, right? Because in the US, the help for the people who are lower income or may need help and all that, it comes from the community. There is some help from the government, but it's limited, right? So from time to time, the social workers or the community workers, they have to be loud about their advocacy. So that when I see results happening, that changed my own perspective on what advocacy should look like. Of course, then when I came back to Singapore, I got associated with TOC. That was also by accident, right? Because I wrote an article about homelessness, how to avoid becoming homeless in Singapore. It was during the great financial crisis, right? And I sent it to the Straits Times forum page. They didn't publish it. I sent it to Voices. There was Voices in Today at that time. They didn't publish it as well. And then finally, I sent it to the National Council of Social Service. They had a fortnightly magazine that came out at that point in time called The Rappo. the editor looked at it and then she said that, well, we need to get this published, but it eventually did not get published because the official stand then, this was like 2008, 2009, was that there are no homeless people in Singapore. So, and then finally, I was sitting in my desktop for the longest time. In those days, you have to get the floppy disk, transfer files from your hard disk to your floppy disk because you're running out of space, right? So I came across this article, say, nicely written, why? Let's see if someone will publish it or not. And I remembered reading the TOC while I was in the US. Right? So I looked them up, I sent them the article, they published it. One thing led to another, and I eventually became the chief editor of TOC for a period of time. So, of course, my association with TOC helped me to take a more critical look at what the government was doing and how things can be done better. Now, of course, the TOC back then was a different animal from the TOC that is here now. I mean, at that point in time, we had like 50, 60 volunteers. It's a volunteer-run organization. Doing different things, not just writing articles, but on the ground, taking pictures, videos. It was very cutting edge, I think. And so, I mean, there was one time when we were, we went for an IPS forum some years back, and it was a forum for bloggers, people who are active in the political scene and had their blog and all that. And I looked around the room, and 90% of the people in that room, they were all alumni of TOC. So the impact of TOC is far-reaching, I think. Many of the things that are happening today are happening because TOC played a very important role in the 2010s, to bring about a social political awareness among different segments of the people.
So that means, are you saying that, because you mentioned that you kind of, your family came out of poverty, you all were economically mobile, but the issues you were having with the PP, just to clarify, was because of what you saw dealing with people in poverty and social services?
Well, at that point in time, I was still an activist and a blogger, right? So I told you that before the 2015 GE, my view was very different. My view of the ground was very different compared to the views that I have now. So then you realize that, I see a lot of unfairness in the sense of in the way that, for example, people who are homeless were being treated, and different kinds of unfairness that I see in society, and I think that things could be done better or people could be treated better. It's always been about the people, and so that's why I felt that things could be better.
Okay. And so leading up to that, going back to a few weeks before the 2020 election, you did. You mentioned that your parting with PSP was amiable and not as blown out of proportion as the media portrayed it. But you also mentioned publicly that you didn't want Jurong GRC to go uncontested, right? Did that play a part in wanting to start Red Dot United, or they were both kind of mutually exclusive?
No, actually, at that point in time, right, I just wanted to go and contest in Hong Kong North. The reason is because I contested in Hong Kong North in 2015. I made a promise to the residents, to the voters there, that I'll stay engaged and that I'll be back. And I did stay engaged the period after the 2015 GE, helping different people in the small ways that I can, trying to meet up with them as often as I can and all that. So I actually asked, when I was leaving, I asked if the PSP will allow me to go and contest Hong Kong North. And the answer was no. And I can totally understand why. It's a political decision that had to be made. And so I mean, this is a fun fact that not many people know, like, sorry about that. That after I left PSP, I called Dr. Paul Tambaya and I asked him if I could join the SDP. And Paul actually said that there wasn't a space in SDP for me. So I told him very clearly that this was where I was going. This was what I had in mind, And so we went back. So when I left, my friends left with me, right? So we went back. We had a talk, and then we said that looks like we won't be able to contest this election. It's okay, lah. I mean, let's go and support whichever party there is, and let's see what we can do, So we were totally chill about it. We were totally relaxed about it because we knew that it's too soon to the 2020 GE. Probably nothing's going to work out. And then it was my friends who were like, "Hey, Ravi, we already have a constitution, right? We already decided that we were going to register a party. Why don't you just put in the papers, lah, I was like, yeah. It's so close to the GE, lah, It usually take like 3 months for them to approve it, right? So my friends were very insistent. They was like, just put it in, lah. I mean, if they approve, they approve. They don't approve, they don't approve, lah. We have everything. I mean, that it's not like today you decide to start a political party, tomorrow you can put in everything, right? You know that you have to have the different instruments ready, the different names that need to be ready to be submitted. So it's never an easy process. So we had all that ready, which is why we could put that submission very, very quickly to the authorities. Then, of course, we had some talks, some disagreements about the name, because for me, I mean, I'm 56, will be 57 this year. For me, I wanted something like the Republican Party, something like that, But then my friends, very confrontational, most of my friends were younger, from a different generation, very confrontational. People don't like to be confrontational, or National Front, or Singapore National Front, or something. Why front? It's looks very confrontational. People don't like confrontation. We want to have a dialogue. We want to have a discussion. We can debate, but it must be the debate must be a good one. With solutions. So they suggested. The majority of them went with Red Dot United. I was like, for me, Red Dot United. What does that even mean? But then eventually grows on you, But then it was a good. I think it was a good suggestion because we stood out from the crowd. One of the names we thought of was like Singapore United Party. Well, there's one Singapore United Party now. And then my friends were like, hey, what's the short form of that is SUP or SUP. People will be like, SUP. So I mean, these are the different kinds of conversations that we had at that point in time. So we put in the application. We also, I mean, if you looked at our social media pages at that point in time, we made it seem like, I mean, maybe we were naive. Maybe we thought that this was how the political scene worked and all that. If you looked at our social media page at that time, which was basically Facebook, we made it seem as if we were going to go for a three-cornered fight with PSP because we were hoping that the authorities will pick up on this and they'll quickly process our application and give us the application because they want us to go into a three-cornered fight.
Yeah, they want to fragment
it. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, in my mind, I think that's why we got our approval so fast. I mean, this is just guessing, and I hope I don't get POFMAT for it. It's just my opinion, And but we got the registration, and after we got the registration, I think we were very clear in our minds. We don't want to go for a three-corner fight. We're very, very clear about that. And so we started talking to different people, right? So the question is why we went to Jurong, right? So we started talking to different people, and people knew me well enough. I had the goodwill and the friendship of many people, including political leaders. And people would pick up my call when I call them, right? So and we found out that nobody was going to Jurong. And the reason why nobody was going to Jurong is because they all felt that Tharman was unbeatable. So that we know that there is space in Jurong, right, for us to contest. So as a new political party, which is barely 3 weeks old, we know that nobody's going to vote for a 3 weeks old party to elect us into parliament. So but we wanted to contest that election because we wanted to seed ideas. We felt that we wanted to build a movement. We were very clear that we didn't want to build a political party because political parties, it's very difficult to sustain a political party. You only come alive once every 5 years to contest an election, especially an opposition political party in Singapore. Whereas if you had a movement, you stay engaged in between elections that are called. You can talk about different issues that are important to you. You can rally the crowd. You can seed ideas, social-political ideas. And I think we're very clear in our mind that that's what we wanted to do. So we decided that nobody's going to vote for a 3 weeks old party, regardless of where you go to, whether it's Hougang or Aljunied or Jurong, nobody's going to vote for a 3 weeks old party. But we thought that we'll use that time. People have a greater social political awareness during the GE period. So we thought that we'll use that time to build the brand of RDU, to seed ideas, and to talk about issues that are important to us. So that's why we went to Jurong GRC, because we looked at it as a marketing campaign to build the identity of RDU. And I think so we were very clear-headed when we went to Jurong GRC. We knew that it would be going to be very tough to beat someone like Tharman, right? And we saw it in the presidential election, how tough it is to beat someone like Tharman. And so I mean, but I think we were fairly successful. It was never easy. I mean, nobody has we were fielding 5 candidates, right? And the deposit alone was about $70,000, and I'm sure nobody has $70,000 lying somewhere around the house, where they can use for a deposit for an election. I mean, that's not talking about the other expenses that we had, and then we didn't want to put a ragtag team, up for election. And so if you looked at the candidates that we fielded in the 2020 GE, they were all people of some substance. They all had we came in as a team, as a solid team, not as a ragtag team, right? So all these things were very important to us. We had to drop 3 candidates who wanted to come on board RDU. They made offers to me saying that we'll just lend us your name, we'll take care of all the election expenses. We will run the campaign ourselves. We'll bring on board our own volunteers and so on and so forth. And we said no to them. Why? Because we're very clear that we are building brand. And to build brand, it's important for us to sustain it, to keep it small, to go with what we want to build. We were very clear that it was not about the 2020 GE. We were looking 5 years ahead, 10 years ahead, 20 years ahead. This is something that we want to build, a movement. So we were very clear-headed about that. So that's why we went to Jurong.
So I think everyone kind of understands that Tharman, very worthy candidate, and yet your party still got 25% of the vote. But was it worrying that, like what you said, who would vote for 3-week-old party? The fact that you still got 25% against one of the most worthy candidates from the incumbent, isn't it worrying? Did you ever think that, it's less about what RDU stands for, but more about people just not wanting to vote for PAP?
Well, I think it's if people don't want to vote for PAP, I think the vote share will be about 20%, because that's what happened in the 2015 GE, right? The 2015 was a Lee Kuan Yew election. He passed away in 2015. So there was a wave of sympathy for the PAP. And we felt it on the ground. I mean, I contested the 2015 election, and I felt it on the ground as well, right? So, I mean, for example, during the 2015 GE, we were doing house visits, and the SPP's uniform is very similar to the PAP's colors, red and white. So people thought that I'm from the PAP visiting them, right? And then there was this woman, an older woman, an Indian woman, who looked at me, thought that I was a PAP candidate, and she said that, "Sir, don't worry, sir. Father passed away. I will give you my vote, sir." Then I felt like so sympathetic towards her. I looked inside the house. Is there an altar? Her father passed away or something. Then she knew that what I was guessing, then she's like, no, sir, not my father, not
Founding
my father. It's Mr. Lee Kuan Yew who passed away, So there was a kind of sympathy wave that was going on in 2015, right? And then another story is I had this. I was walking around in Bukit Batu, which was part of Hong Kong North, and this woman, it was like at about 10:30, 11 at night, and this woman, she came down especially to meet me. She brought me up to her flat. Her family shared 2 units. They're all side by side, and the few families that were living in the 2 units, they came together, and they said that while their father had just passed away. This one is their real father, Their real father passed away a few months back, The woman who met me said that while the father was alive, he forbade any of them to vote for the PAP. Everybody had to vote for the opposition, regardless of who they were. But since the father passed away, she felt that they had to reconsider their father's wishes, because Lee Kuan Yew had passed away, and they felt that as a family they had a gratitude. They wanted to show their gratitude to the man. So they apologized to me, saying that, "I'm sorry, Mr. Ravi, but this is what we are going to do. We are going to all give our votes to the PAP." So I appreciated conversations like that, because people were all some people were very open and honest about what they were going to do in the 2015 GE, right? So if you looked at Jurong in 2015, they got like 20% of the votes, right? So when we did our math, so there were 2 things that we decided. If anyone else is going to Jurong, then we are not going to contest Jurong. We can back out. It's okay. Why? Because we don't want, for ego, lose $70,000. There's a lot of money to lose just for ego, and the next thing we decided was, if there's not going to be a 3-corner fight, then we will definitely get more than 12.5%. We looked at the 2015 GE, saw that they got 20% of the votes. We'll definitely get at least 20% of votes. So that was our calculation. But during, I got a little bit worried on polling day, because I was in the counting center. And I was assigned to Taman Jurong. And the 5 other candidates were in the other counting centers, And when I went into the first counting table, my heart dropped, because we were scoring something like 9%, 10%, 11% in some of the tables. I was like, oh my gosh, are we going to lose our deposit? So as I was thinking that, Tharman walked in, right? So he walked in, and I looked at him and I said that, looks like you're nailing it, And then it's like, how he talks like, it's like, no, Ravi, actually, you're doing very well in all the other places. It's like, oh, really? I mean, I thought that it was like just being nice to me, So I thanked him. I went out. I called my guys in Bukit Batu. And the person who was in charge in Bukit Batu, she said that, hey, Ravi, not bad, we are scoring like 35, 36, 37, and in some places, even 39%. So, oh, wow. Then I called Clementi, the counting station in Clementi. The same story was happening in Clementi, right? 32, 33, 35, 36%, But the nearer it got to Tharman, it kept dropping, right? So which is why we got the kind of results that we did. Tharman just pulled everything down.
It's the aura of Tharman.
Yeah. I mean, at that period of time, people, walkabouts, people will openly say, oh, I voted for Tharman and then I got Tan Wu Meng, So, I mean, people are funny in that sense, but they're also honest,
Yeah.
So I think one important so like I said, we looked at it as a marketing campaign. That we cannot go into an election for example, if you don't have a manifesto ready, right? So we even had the manifesto ready. There's no way that you can prepare a manifesto in 3 weeks' time, right? So it takes months, years of preparation to get a manifesto done. So we were as prepared as we can be to contest an election. And I think our manifesto resonated with a lot of people. For example, a lot of people who joined us after the election, they were mainly young people. And a lot of the feedback we were getting was that we read your manifesto. It was a good manifesto. I think we want to support you, and so on and so forth. Where two incidents especially stick out in my mind. One was during the campaigning period. I went into it's a COVID election, so only a few people can go inside the eateries to flyer the patrons and all that. So one of the person went into this very small eatery, a family of 3. They were having their dinner, and I gave the flyer to an older gentleman who I assume is the father of the father of the people who are having the dinner, So there's a man, a woman, and a younger man, So father took my flyer and he looked at me and he said, "Oh, you are the one going up against Tharman." So from his tone, I knew that he was not going to give us his vote,
Yeah.
Then when his son, I assume his son, when his son heard that he wasn't even looking at me, he dropped his cutlery and looked at his dad. He said, "Papa, they're very good, leh. Did you read their manifesto or not? Did you see their rally speech or not?" Then the father's face sort of turned red, right? So I don't want to be involved in that conversation. I excused myself from that conversation. But from that encounter, I knew that probably the older gentleman and the wife were going to give Tharman his vote. But there's a chance that this young man may give us his vote. Right? So that was one incident. Another incident was after the GE. We were going around thanking people in the different areas of Jurong GRC. We went into this hawker center. A young family were having their breakfast. I think a middle-aged man with his children and his wife having breakfast. Before I could give him a thank you flyer to thank him, he said, "Donate. I never vote for you." So I thanked him. Went to the next table. It was a longish table, and there were like maybe 6, 7 young people sitting around that table having their breakfast. They saw this man saying, "Donate, I didn't vote for you." Before I could reach the table, one of the guys from that table stood up and he said, "Uncle, don't worry, we all voted for you." And they started clapping their hands for me. And the man who refused my flyer, he was like, "Hey, what happened?"
Yeah.
So, and the people who joined us since, immediately after the 2020 GE, they were all people who are much younger, 35 years old and younger. And I think that is a segment of population that RDU was able to touch and reach out through our messaging and how we carried ourselves and so on. Yeah.
So I mean, we've spoken a lot about the background and the high level story of RDU and all. But what about the specifics? What would you say RDU stands for? Because I mean, certain parties, opposition parties, you can almost tell like their areas of focus, But for RDU, it's still like maybe now you can kind of tell us what the focus is, because I mean, you mentioned a more plural society, right? But what does that mean? And I know this past budget, you all released a shadow budget, which also covers a lot of different things. But at the core, what is the philosophy of Red Dot United?
Of course, if you look at our website, right, we have set out what we believe in, and it centers on fairness, accountability, integrity, and so on and so forth, right? But if you ask me, if you want me to break it down into something simpler, I think it has always got to be about the people and the planet. This has got to be the boundaries which we cannot cross, the foundation being the people. So whatever you do, it has got to benefit the people. Whatever you do, it cannot come at the expense of the planet. So these are the two boundaries that we set for ourselves, and we try to work within these boundaries that I said. And we are very, very careful. Like I said, the early people who joined us, nature activists who believed in, we came out with the Green Manifesto during the 2020 GE. I think we were the only political party to come out with the Green Manifesto at that point in time. So we have dialogues, debates, arguments. You know how young people are. They're never afraid to speak their mind. I've even had young person telling me, Ravi, I'm not telling you I'm not asking you to tell me how you feel about it. I want you to hear how I feel about it. So there's no hierarchy, right? And I appreciate that. That's the kind of robust conversations that we want to have, and I'm not offended by such counter arguments, such criticisms. I like criticisms. I like to be challenged. I like my boundaries to be pushed. I had different views on so many different things when maybe even like 2-3 years ago, and my views have totally changed, right? Because people keep pushing me, and I keep having to evaluate and reevaluate myself. Is the place where I'm standing in now, is it right? Should I move to the right? Should I move to the left? So these are things that I want to challenge myself on, right? So I really appreciate when people come and they challenge me, they try to push boundaries, or even challenge RDU to push boundaries and so on and so forth. So I think that's one reason why people who have joined us, they feel like they have sort of like a connection with us. Like I said earlier, right? So it's within these boundaries that we try to place all our policies on.
So I mean, is there any concrete, like let's say there's one thing that you think the current policies are completely at ends with what you all believe? And I mean, I know your budget covered a lot of different things, but if there's one that you think is the most pertinent, like what are some concrete examples?
I think, if you are just asking me for one thing, I think the one thing is the GDP cannot be the main focus of everything that you want to do. Even Lawrence Wong have said that, right? Some people say that you don't need to have growth, blah 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 blah, But we are not saying that you don't need to have growth, but balance your growth with the welfare of the people. Balance your growth with what needs to be done to protect the planet that we have. Singapore is the only country we have. It's a very tiny little red dot in the sea or the great ocean that is out there. So we have to protect what is important. And in the context of Singapore, what do we have? We don't have oil. We don't have diamond or gold mine to go and dig and take out or whatever. We only have two things. One is we are very geographically well placed. Number two, we have the most hardworking people in the world. I mean, survey after survey shows that, right? So these are two things that you need to protect. You need to protect our land, our country, the space that you have. You need to protect our people because these are the two resources that we have. So we are very clear-headed that we need a well-being economy where the well-being of the people and the well-being of the planet is given an equal priority as the GDP.
I think I do appreciate your honesty when you talk about the 2020 election being almost marketing platform for you. So structurally, how are you all more ready to contest for more seats in this election and to even get into parliament, run a town council, and all? What has changed structurally in the past 5 years?
Well, people who know me that I plan and I plan and I plan again. So I have a plan A, plan B, plan C, sometimes even a plan D, right? I'm very task-oriented. So 5 years ago, I saw that the election is going to come. I was thinking it's going to be 2024, right? So we started preparing for the election immediately after the 2020 GE, right? So and so that is why we started writing policies. We didn't become dormant, right? Like I said, we are trying to build a movement. When we try to build a movement, that means you constantly need to be doing something to keep people engaged, and so some of the things that we have done is we have done a town council management plan, and that was not easy. Just out of the blue, just snatch out a town council management plan. We consulted with the residents what was lacking in that particular constituency. We spoke to people who are running town councils, who had the experience of running town councils from the opposition, both current and former, before we put out that plan, right? It came after much discussion, debates, even among ourselves, right? And when it comes to candidates training, we started asking people to apply to be candidates in 2023. And so some people, they applied, and we must have had like maybe 35, I'm being very conservative here, 35 applicants, and then we had a committee which interviewed them. We spoke to them, and then we finally shortened it down to a much smaller number. We trained them we started training them from February last year, because we were very clear what we wanted to do. As a political party, we were no longer a 3 weeks old party. There are other parties out there now, right? I mean, which are much newer than us. I mean, the last I heard on Wallet's show is the most valuable party, So, unique name. So I think that we are no longer a 3 weeks old party. We're very clear about that. And I think we have some substance. I think we have good people who have helped to make this happen. So I think we can. I mean, people who know me know that I never say things which I cannot do, because if I say I can do something, I'll make sure that I do it. So when I say that we have the capability to contest in 6 constituencies, that means we have. Without the vitamin M's, you cannot run any organization. I mean, don't talk about political party, any organization. Vitamin M's for me is money, manpower, and the ability to mobilize. Without this vitamin M's, any organization cannot survive. Right? So I have this vitamin M's, which makes me confident. Right?
But speaking of M's, Bertha Henson the journalist was on our podcast recently, and she used the word mosquito parties to describe the smaller parties who are contesting election. I mean, there is this thought out there that these smaller parties with all the different alliances and, the different, the horse trading going on with which place to run and all that. A lot of people are saying that the smaller opposition parties, they are distracting from the actual issues that opposition should be united and presenting to people. What's your response to this term of mosquito parties?
I think in the context of Singapore, right, except for the PAP, all other political parties are mosquitoes, right? Because it's just a matter of whether they are bigger mosquitoes or smaller mosquitoes, right? So I think I think mosquitoes are also very important in the ecosystem of things. Of course, some people think that they're very pesky, they need to be killed and all that. But if you didn't have mosquitoes, it means that you won't have the kind of pollination that you have now. Bees alone are not enough. Butterflies alone are not enough. You need mosquitoes to do pollination to keep the earth that we have and that we know, right? So I think mosquitoes play a very important role in the ecosystem, right? And for us, if you say that RDU is a mosquito, then, well, I'll own it. Then our role is to pollinate people's minds with socio-political issues, right? And when you look at the greater scheme of things, right, the way that I look at the PAP is they are the aircraft carriers. They may be the only aircraft carrier in the region, right? How do you bring down an aircraft carrier? We don't have any other aircraft carriers in the region, right? And so to bring down an aircraft carrier, you'll need smaller frigates who will attack the aircraft carrier from different angles, take up guerrilla warfare, hit and run. That's the only way to bring down something as big as an aircraft carrier. So whether it's a mosquito or a frigate or whatever you may call it, we have to chip away. And that's what we are doing.
But is the goal to bring down the aircraft carrier? Because, in one way, you can say attack to bring down or to slow down or maybe share the lane with the aircraft carrier.
I think there is a role for the PAP to play, right? But is the role that the PAP is playing now, is it the right role? That's an important question that everyone has got to ask. I think when you look ahead in the past years, the PAP has got about 60% of the votes. They've got 90% at the table. Is that what the people want? These are all important questions to ask, right? Because 40% of the people have said that I don't like the direction that this country has taken. I want things to change. Can you please do something about it or not? But the voice of the 40% is not heard. And sometimes, it's not just about the 40%, right? People who vote in an election, they vote not mainly because they like the PAP, they like what the PAP is doing, but change is always very, very difficult. Change is very difficult. People are very comfortable being in their own little circles. They don't like change. They want to do what they have always been doing. And I think the PAP gives them that kind of a comfort. And I don't blame the people for that. So when I look ahead, the PAP is here to stay. Here to stay. In the sense that there is no way that they're going to be forced out from being the government. Right? So when I speak about going against an aircraft carrier, it's not to sink the aircraft carrier, but to make sure that the frigates have a space to occupy in the sea as well. So, so that you don't claim the entire sea for yourself. The frigates play an equally important role in making sure that pirates are off the sea, that the sea remains a safe passage for trade to happen, and so on and so forth. Maybe the aircraft carrier is ill-placed, ill-equipped to manage the sea all by itself, because pirates are going to be small, they're going to be nimble, they're going to strike when you don't expect them to strike. So we need the space.
So sorry, just to ask also, because I think you seem like a nice guy, and you speak quite respectfully of, whether it's Mr. Shanmugam or President Tharman and your interactions with them. But in today's politics, right, at least the trend seems to be moving towards a lot more, almost confrontational, a lot more, the discourse becomes, there's a lot more confrontation going on now, right? So do you feel like your personality, the things that you talk about, like, the way when you come up with Green Manifesto and compassion in society and things like that, they're kind of, that's not really going with the times of where what people seem to be wanting of their leaders, to be more forceful, to be really challenging each other, dodging each other and all that.
I think times are changing, right? In the past, we had Lee Kuan Yew, we had JBJ, great people, both great people, respects to both of them. But both were lawyers, right? I mean, even Cham Si Tong, he was a lawyer, right? So, and lawyers, you know how they approach politics. They approach politics like how they would argue their cases in court, right? So it's very, very, very confrontational. The goal is to try and bring out the truth so that the judge will see it from their point of view, right? But I think society itself has evolved. After these lawyers, then you had you had Goh Chok Tong. I think he was in NOL, a more businessman, tradesman kind of thing. And then you had a mathematician, and then now you have a career civil servant as our prime minister. So I think the leadership of the PAP itself has changed. The tone of the PAP leadership itself has changed depending on who is heading that party, right? And we find that there's a lot of talking that is happening. But of course, the question is, you can just talk to say what you want to say. You don't need to talk after listening to people and after considering their views. So there are different kinds of talks that you can have, right? So I think the tone of the PAP itself has changed. For RDU, how we try to distinguish ourselves is we believe in a non-adversarial politics. We don't want to be combative, or we don't want to we don't want to be controversial for the sake of being controversial, right? We believe we want to bring solutions to the table. Of course, not all the solutions that we may offer may be the best solutions, but let's talk about it. So unless we talk about it, we won't be able to decide as a society which is the destination that we want to be at. We can't arrive at that destination if we don't want to, right? So I think that's the kind of tone that we have taken through. I mean, if you look at the collateral that we have put out in the past 5 years, we have never taken a very combative approach. We are ready to debate. Don't mistaken. We are ready to debate. We are ready to bring hard debates to the table. But it don't need to be emotional. You don't need to hit somebody below the belt. You need to respect the person for who he is. Let's talk about the issues. That's what we want to do.
Is there a change for you personally? Because going from the campaign rallies for you from 2015, 2011, you were, very emotional, and I would say even combative. So is that a thing that has matured, or do you see rallies as being different from, parliamentary debates, and rallies you do require that sort of fervor?
Of course, in 2015, I was very raw, So I mean, I do from time to time turn on the YouTube and listen to what I've got to say. I was like, "Ew, did I see that?" No. So, but I was a rookie, in 2015, right? So you think that, and of course, my background is from people who know me know that I was a pastor. And when you preach off the pulpit, you need to take on a certain tone. You need to deliver your message in a certain manner. And being a rookie politician, I thought that that's what you need to bring to the table as well. But even then, Yahoo, which was reporting the 2015 GE, said that there were one particular rally night speech. They said that there were only two superstars in all the rallies tonight. So I'm paraphrasing, of course. One is Cham Si Tong, and the other one is Ravi Philemon. He spoke at my rally, So, I mean, at that point in time, I think it worked. Somewhat worked. I mean, not totally worked, somewhat worked. But now when I look back at it, it's like, I think I wouldn't deliver the speech myself. But of course, we all have to consider the platform.
Yeah.
Like when I speak here, this is a different kind of platform. It's a dialogue that we're having. We're talking about many different things. When I have for example, a forum, it's a different kind of a platform. And when we have a rally, the platform is different. Yeah. I think we all have to be aware of the platform that we are in and tailor our content to that platform.
I mean, I respect you saying that, because when I was watching those videos, I was like, oh, you sound almost Trumpian. Very nativist, very protectionist. Right. And I respect you kind of saying that, okay, looking back, if you were to deliver the same message now, it would be different.
Right.
But you mentioned that you do have a background as a pastor, right? So, and I also know Red Dot United, you have mentioned that you want to talk about issues about, human rights on moral grounds and not just bread and butter issues. Again, I respect that. But, your background as a pastor, the fact that your party values on your website spell out the word faith, how big a role does religion play in your politics? Because, I mean, after all, on paper, we are a secular state, right? And when I see that, I'm like, is there something behind this? Because you're seeing it in the US. Right. There's a lot of focus on that. Right. So when I see how closely tied is it, or is it not tied at all?
I would say that, when you look at RDU, right, we have people from, for example, we have mosque leaders who are party members. We have pastors and Christian leaders who are party members. And we also have people from the LGBTQ community who are party members. Right. And I think it's the broad middle that we have in our members and volunteers as well. Right. So I think it's that's the space that we want to be. We want to have the broad middle, and I think that's the right space to be in. And actually, when you look at what I have said throughout the years, and I think people can Google me to find out what I have said about the different issues and all that, you will see that I believe in the state being secular, in the separation of the state and the church. Right? Why? Because I think only in a secular state can all faiths be protected, or non-faiths be protected. So I think I was very, very uncomfortable in 2015, for example. The church had a Jubilee celebration where the Prime Minister, at that time, Mr. Lee Hsien Loong, attended. And about 60,000 people in the stadium, and they prayed a prayer of and they prayed a prayer over him, a very special kind of prayer. I think a prayer of Cyrus, I think, if I'm not mistaken, which sort of recognizes him in a certain manner, So it made me very, very uncomfortable, because I felt that a line was being crossed, from the secular to the religious. And then, do you actually know what you are doing? But I also know that it's a different time, a different era. Lee Kuan Yew had passed away. People are emotional beings. They want to act in a certain manner, and so on and so forth. So, and I also hear both the 2015 G and the 2020 G that there's this group of senior civil servants who call themselves a Daniel Project, who start praying 24 hours, a chain prayer, hoping that the PAP will get elected, So all these kind of things make me very, very uncomfortable. Of course, being a committed follower of Christ, I know that you are called to pray for the government of the day, and I do pray for the government of the day as well. But it doesn't mean just because you pray for the government of the day doesn't mean that you need to be subservient to them. It doesn't mean that you need to question them when you have to question them. It doesn't mean that you need to keep voting for them, right? I mean, if that's what you think the Bible says, then we will still have slavery. Because women will still not be allowed to vote. So I think it cannot be that way. It cannot be so simple. So that's where I stand.
So I mean, interesting that you talk about the makeup of your party, because I think the people that you are planning to field, at least in a couple of SMCs that you've put them out there, Emily Wu and I think Kala, right? They're from very diverse backgrounds, educators, involved in very different things. Not the usual kind of, when we think of politics in Singapore, civil servant and all these. Like, what is the recruitment process for these people? And how do you vet these people to be the best candidates for running under your banner?
Well, thank you for asking that question. I think it's a very important question. I go out of the way to try and recruit women into the party. Why? Because I think we live in a very patriarchal society, and it's important for women to be involved in politics so that their voices are heard. So the only two people that we have introduced as being in charge of two constituencies so far are women. Right? I could have there are other people, men, who are equally qualified, who we could have fielded in that constituency. Some would argue that fielding a man in an SMC would be better than fielding a woman because women come with certain disadvantages, right? But it was with a purpose that we decided to field two women. I mean, the two people that we have introduced so far, are women. We are sending a message that women are important in society. We want to walk the talk. And we will continue to do that going forward. What selection process do we have? Emily has worked with us since the 2020 GE. She was a volunteer, so we know her character, we know her strengths, we know what she can do, what she cannot do. She has been through the vetting process, our own vetting process. She has gone through the 1+ year of training with us in the podcast training. Kala, I have known her from my days in PSP. She always she has looked up to me as a mentor. I think she won't be shy in saying that I am her mentor. So we have a long friendship going back many, many years. Of course, the friendship doesn't mean just because you're friends with someone, it doesn't mean that you will accept everything that a friend does, right? But at the core of it, I know that she's a good leader. She was a SAF platoon commander, which means that she has got good leadership qualities. We know that she can lead some things. We know that she's got a heart of compassion. She's a mother figure. And so all these are qualities that we will look for in anybody that we will want to feel.
So she's an ex-SAF regular.
Yes.
Well, totally should. If generals are being parachuted in, then you should talk about her SAF background as well.
Yeah. No, and to clarify, just now you mentioned, fielding women candidates, there is a disadvantage. Like what do you see? Like what is that?
I mean, like I said, we live in a very patriarchal society.
Yeah.
And sometimes there is a tendency to see women as being lesser or less able than men because people tend to think that, they have a family to take care. Their priority will be, taking care of their ailing mother or their children or, whatever, will they have enough time to give to us and so on and so forth. But on the flip, we have, for example, in Nee-Soon GRC, we have this MP called Derek, who's recently promoted to be the group chief operating officer of DBS Bank. You can imagine the kind of workload that a group chief operating officer will have. And what kind of time is he going to allocate for his own constituents? So I think it's a very unfair way to look at women. Of course, women have made a lot of strides, in Singapore, but I think a lot more can be done and should be done.
Okay.
I think also, just to quickly touch on it, I think the media has also picked up that the lawyer, M. Ravi, has been seen on walkabouts with the party as well. And, the media reports, there are, you can say that there is some so-called perceptions that people have of him as well. Are you worried about these kind of perceptions affecting how people perceive your party as well?
Well, I know Ravi for a very long time. We all have been involved in different things. And because I was a social political blogger, social political activist, so we are in the same space, right? So I know Ravi for a very, very long time. And I remember in one of the dinners that we have had, I think it was in 2012 or 2013, when Yong Wei Kwong was pardoned. We had a dinner to thank Ravi because it was a long battle to get Yong Wei Kwong to be, given the pardon from the death penalty. And in that dinner, I said that Ravi is like a spirit. Spirits, you can never contain them. You can never contain them. The society may tell you that these are the rules of the society. These are the rules that we play by, and everybody has to conform to these rules of society. A spirit will never conform to that society. But we need spirits, right? We need spirits, because if not, it'll be so boring. Everything will be so uniform. So the spirit tells us from time to time, hey, this is not right. You need to be headed in that direction. So I think the spirit is very, very important, right? Of course, spirits can also go wayward, can go haywire, and which is why sometimes you see Ravi doing some of the things that he does, dancing Bharatanatyam. It's good. It's good that he's a good dancer, But I think we should not judge him for all the things that society thinks he should not be doing, right? If he is at peace with himself, I think that's the most important thing. For me, I think if you're a Singaporean, I want to accept you. Why should I think of Ravi differently from any other Singaporean who wants to volunteer with RDU? And by the way, Ravi is not a member of the party. He is a volunteer, right? And if you talk to him, he will tell you that he's not suited for party life, because in the party we have we expect all our members to be disciplined in a certain way, because we are very careful, right? We are building a brand. So all party members become ambassadors. So, for me, for example, I insist that they tuck in their uniform, they wear shoes when they go out. They groom themselves in a proper way. I insist on it.
All the time.
All the time. All the time. So because I'm aware, right, every voter has got 30 seconds or 30 seconds to 1 minute to decide that, okay lah, this guy's okay lah, I can give him my vote lah. It's not by the speech that you make at a rally, right? It's by how you present yourself. So when you go out, I think you have to be appropriately attired, because you need to give that confidence to the person that you're meeting. So I always insist on that, right? So someone like Ravi, he will not be able to play party rules. As a party, we have also let go of people, right? Because for different reasons. Because some people, they just want to be a social media celebrity, or they want to be an influencer, or they want to be an activist. Fair and fine. Everybody has got a role to play in society, right? But in the context of Singapore, you have to decide if you want to be an activist or a politician. It's a decision that you have to make. You have to decide if you want to be. You can be an activist and a politician if you're not going to run for elected office, it's fair and fine, but I'm always mindful that if you're fielding a team, then how one person behaves or conducts himself affects the 12, 13, 14 people that we are putting on the team as well. So we're very, very careful in how we select our candidates in any election, right? So if you ask me, yes, if you ask me if I ask them to tuck in their t-shirts all the time, I do it all the time, right? So this is a game that Ravi won't be able to play, right? So which he's volunteering. He's Jalan Kayu boy. His book Kampung Boy chronicles his days as Jalan Kayu Kampung Boy. He lives in Jalan Kayu now. So even more reason why he wants to be involved in the Jalan Kayu campaign. And we welcome him, just like we would welcome any other Singaporean.
So do you think that adherence to, everybody needs to be on their best, behavior at all times, it is more apparent now with the incumbent or less apparent? And like, what other changes do you see in the lead up to this election compared to the previous elections?
Well, I think, I'm looking at the political scene, right?
Yeah.
So what have the voters accepted so far? Look at the parliament now. We have Coke Light, and Coke Zero. Even Pepsi is not acceptable, right? So, when I say Coke, PAP,
Coke Light,
Workers' Party, and PSP, right? I don't want to say who is who, I know, but it's basically Coke Light, and Coke Zero, right? Even Pepsi is not acceptable, right?
Yeah.
And so, I think we want to be the vanilla Coke. Right? So we don't even want to be Pepsi or Sasi. Sasi is like way, way out there. I don't even think the new generation know what Sasi is. Right? So when we look at the scene out there, I think that this is what we need to do. We need to be a very disciplined party because we are not only looking at the 2025 general election. We are looking at the elections that will come after that. So this is something. So when we set out RDU, right, there are two things that we wanted to build. One was a culture. We didn't want a toxic culture. We want to make sure that every voice is heard, regardless of how small that voice is. We try to incorporate every voice that is there into the policies that we're doing. And when we can't, we try to explain to you why we can't. What the trade-offs are, and so on and so forth. And the other thing that we wanted to do is we wanted to build a framework. Because we felt a framework was very, very important in the sense that when you go out, you meet people, what kind of data you collect, how you collect that data, how you use that data, how do you use it to inform your policy, your research, and so on and so forth. So these were the two things that we set out to do. We were very clear that these were the two things that we wanted to build. So this is the foundation of the party, right? So, there are good people who came on board to help us build this platform that we're trying to build, right? In the early days, soon after the last GE, I had a call I had a Facebook message from a person that I didn't know at all. And then he said that, hey, Ravi, can I meet you? So we met at the Bukit Timah Shopping Center. And then he said that, hey, my Facebook name is different from the name that I use, my real name, right? So, and then he said that he wanted to be a party member, So, so I told him how he can apply to be a party member and all that. So I went back. His name was a very unusual name, and I Googled his name, and I found out that he was a billionaire. Billionaire, not even a millionaire or a multi-millionaire, it's a billionaire.
It was his name Bruce Wayne or something.
So it's like, why does this guy want to join us, man? There's Workers' Party out there, there's PSP out there, there's even SDP out there, So why does this guy want to join us, So I called for a second meeting to ask him why, And he said that he went through all the manifesto that is out there. He felt that RDU's manifesto resonated the most with him. He felt that by joining a party which is more established, has got legacy, there'll be less room for him to try and shape the party in a certain manner. And that's what he wanted to do with any organization, right? So, so these are the kind of people.
He's like your Elon Musk lah.
Well, people like that are strengths to the party. Right? Our head of comms is the former director of comms for the British High Commission, right? So he's a lecturer in a university now, So we have good people with us, who believe in the mission, who believe in the vision, and that gives us the confidence, to. Of course, it's scary lah. I won't be. I have to be honest and say that it's very, very scary. Some mornings I wake up, oh my gosh, the task is so daunting. How do we do this? But I think we have good people with us, and I believe in destiny. I think destiny will see us through.
No, that's a very optimistic.
That's good.
Optimistic way to cap the discussion.
Yeah.
And if people want to find out more, where should they go? Your website for the manifesto?
Yeah, our website, our social media sites. I think we are on TikTok. Our TikTok is on fire actually. Some videos go up to 70, 80 K views or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Okay.
Awesome.
We'll have all the links in the description.
Yeah. Thanks so much for the discussion. We do end off every episode with our one Shiok Thing segment.
Yeah.
So, you still have a few minutes to think. Terence and I can go first.
Okay.
Terence, you have yours?
Mine's a podcast on the Ezra Klein show, a bit of a left-leaning podcast by New York Times, where Ezra Klein, the journalist, speaks to Jonathan Haidt, the author of this book called The Anxious Generation. I've spoken about that book as my one Shiok Thing before, but I enjoyed this particular interview on this podcast because it was more than just about the relationship between kids and social media. He actually talks a lot about how modern parenting is failing children, right? And, there are some certain things that I think you can agree and disagree with, but one thing that really stands out in this discussion is about how much we mollycoddle our children, and we think that is actually good for them. And modern parenting says that as a parent you should be spending all the time that you possibly can with your child. But his argument is that actually in history that has never happened, right? And kids when left to fend for themselves, still in a safe environment, but fending for themselves in the playground and all that. That's where they learn the real social skills. That's when the neurons in the brain start to fuse. Not fuse, but to form the pathways that lead to adult success. So I thought it was an interesting conversation because it really, I think it challenges a lot of what we perceive to be the must-haves in modern parenting, like a lot of quality time with your child and all that. So that's why I thought it was an interesting
You're just buying a free pass to tell your wife, hey, he needs to spend time alone. You listen to this podcast. I'm going to watch my football game.
All of us.
Yeah, I'm going to bookmark
Yeah. But for you, do you, when you bring out your kids and all, when they were younger, how were you? What did you do as a parent? Were you very hands-on?
Got manifesto.
I was very young. So just, I was very clear. My father was not the best of fathers. He was very, very, not even strict, I would say abusive. I remember this one incident. I was 2-3 years old, went to the barber with him. 2-3 years don't sit well, so he gave me a slap. I came back home with 4 fingers on my cheeks, right? So that's the kind of father that I had. So I decided that I will not be the kind of father that my father was. So that was my only manifesto. So, so my father shaped me, whether I like it or not. He shaped me in the sense that I decided that I'm not going to be someone like him, and that's how it shaped me, right? So I'm thankful to my father. I remember this one incident where my father went for a bypass surgery. He didn't recover. He was 3 months in the ICU, right? And one night the doctors called us, hey, father's going to pass away. Why don't you come and have a look, right? So I went to see him, and we saw that his blood pressure was dropping, but he wouldn't let go. You see? And then something in me just told me that, hey, Ravi, you have never told your father that you love him. Why don't you tell him that you love him? So I've never done that now. So I went to him, to his ears, and I said that I call him Acha. Acha is in Malayalam. And I say, Acha, I love you, in his ears actually. And he went like this and flatlined, you know. So it's like, oh, it was a liberating moment for me, you know, something released in me, you know. And it's like he was just waiting for me to say that, right? So, I mean, I bring this up because fathers never realize how important they are in their children's lives, but they play a very, very, very important role. And my father has shaped my own life.
Very true. Very true.
Wow. That is a powerful story.
Yeah, thank you.
I hope your one Shiok Thing.
Okay, it's
is
not
up to that.
trivial. It's not trivial.
Okay.
Because sometimes my one Shiok Thing is like, he'll give some super deep, well thought, and mine will be some nonsense. But my one this time, there's also a bit of history in it. It's an article I saw on the Think China website, which I was wondering, what is that website? It's actually a subsidiary of Lianhe Zapao. And it's nothing political. It is a photo story by a Taiwanese photo collector who goes by the name of Su Chung Mao. And he has photos, he or she has photos of Singapore back in the 50s. And it's been colorized and all that. And you can see photos of Collyer Quay, a Malay fishing village by the river. And I mean, I haven't seen photos like this before. And I was like, part of me was like, is this AI? But it's an actual photo. And it was, you just look at it, the Singapore river water is kind of blue. I know, I don't know whether it's artificially colorized or too colorized, but you look at it, you're like, oh, no skyscrapers, just people on the fishing boats. And it's fascinating. Fascinating.
You wishing for the days that Singapore was
simpler
great.
days. The simpler days.
Make Singapore great again, is it?
No. You can appreciate the past and the present, Terence, and the future. But it's just the pictures are very captivating. So that's my one Shiok Thing. What about you, Ravi?
Well, I have this book that I started reading again, the book called The Pearl. I read it as a 14-year-old boy. Forgot who the author is a well-known person. And as a 14-year-old, I was made to read it because it was part of the literature text, right?
Yeah.
So, oh my God, what is this? The Pearl, so girlish, you know, and you want me to read this, you know how 14-year-old boys think.
Yeah.
You know? Then when I started reading it, I couldn't put the book down. It's like, wow, you know. And because it's the story of this man who finds something so precious and he thinks that he can do something for himself and his family by using this very precious thing. And in the journey of it all, he forgets that what's most precious is his family, you know, and that he has sacrificed a lot of things, especially his family, because he wanted to keep this thing which he thought was very, very precious to him. When I visited my daughter in the UK a few months back, she knew that this was my favorite book in my entire shelf, but I didn't have a copy of it, right? So she especially went to a bookshop in the UK, I think it was Waterstones, and she got me a copy of it. And that's what, I mean, some parts I can't open and read it now, because it's like, I know what's coming, you know, and I don't want to read that, because it triggers, right? So, yeah, but that's my favorite book.
Oh, that's cool.
That was I think my Sec 1 or Sec 2 literature. That was the book that I had to study also.
Is it?
Yeah, so I do, when you mentioned the Pearl, it just like, wow, triggered like a lot of memories of studying about it back then. Not bad. So it's something that you keep on your shelf and every now and then you take out again. Okay. So it's a book for you.
Yes.
Okay, for me, it's usually the movies I take out again. How about you, Harish? What do you take out?
Videos, online videos.
Manchester United.
No. I mean, actually, online videos, like, I have a list of stuff that if I need a quick perk me up, there's certain videos I watch which make me feel like it stirs something up.
Suitable for work videos.
Yes, Terence. Yes, Terence. They can be like live performances, speeches.
Just checking what kind
movies.
of videos. Videos very broad. Can be a lot of things.
Movies also very broad, right, Terence? But yeah, all SFW, SFW videos.
Great. Wow.
But yeah, Thanks so
Yeah.
much, Ravi, for
Thank you.
for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and great to know a lot of the history behind your own story, Red Dot United story, and all the best for the upcoming elections.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And thanks everyone for listening. All the links are in the show notes, and we'll talk to you all soon.